Welcome everybody to the Hurting Humanity channel. Hail Satan, religious freedom fighters plan to open school. There's a lot wrong with that sentence right there, starting of course with Hail Satan, because remember, the Satanists tell you that they don't actually worship Satan, but they're literally saying worship Satan every time they do some type of invocation or any kind of speech out in the open. But what's even scarier than the plan to open a school is the fact that they're using terms like religious freedom fighters. And that sums up where we are in the world, right? Of course, Lucien Graves, the leader of the Satanic Temple, direct connection to Nebraska's Boys Town, by the way, if anybody's interested in learning about the Franklin cover-up, which you can find over on my website. Well, there's a direct connection between Lucien and there because he's an operative of the government. He is a government asset. And of course, the Satanic Temple is a government asset who is here to remove religious freedom. So, before I get into all the things about the school, and of course, if you didn't notice, Lucien deliberately has pigment missing from one of his eyes. If the all-seeing eye symbolism isn't in our faces enough with this guy who's claiming that his group doesn't believe in Lucifer, they do not worship the devil. Are you kidding me? It's all make-believe, right? Now, think back to some of the stuff going on. This is all deliberate, where we're getting Bibles reintroduced to schools. Of course, every Christian's on board with this. Every Christian thinks that this is great and this is wonderful, but they don't understand that this is part of the plan. What really should be occurring is Christian parents should be removing their children from school. Why? Because while they think it's good to send their kid to school because they went to school when they were kids, they don't realize that their kids are being indoctrinated with nothing but lies. So just the point that there's no Christianity in the schools should be enough for people to not send their kids there, but the notion of everything that's getting taught there and how it really helps you in zero way for the real world, learning about indigenous clouds or rock formations, well, it doesn't really help one make a living in the world unless they're going to become a geologist. But I mean, maybe if they're learning about cloud formations, you'd think they'd start teaching people what a real cloud is versus what a fake cloud is, being that the majority of clouds we see in the sky are not actually clouds. That haze you see above and those streaks, of course, are all aluminum and barium, brought to you by the United States government, who continues to poison us from the sky. So what has happened with Christians is they've gotten so worked into all of this stuff that the government has deliberately done through the media, with endorsing men playing women's sports, with endorsing kids changing their gender, that parents are saying we need to get the Bible into schools, right? Of course, the Bible, even when we were all kids, was not allowed in school. There was separation of church and state, which I guess should be perfectly fine, but nobody should be going to these indoctrination camps called schools in the first place. You don't learn any trades. You don't learn anything worthwhile. People go there to socialize. The main concern of a child when they go to school is to fit in and to make friends. And of course, even if your kid is raised at home by the Bible and you teach them the Bible every day, you still send them to those indoctrination camps. Guess what? The other kids and how they're raised is spreading to them like a virus. Even if you keep your kid off of technology, guess what? When your kid goes to school, all the other kids around him are showing them all the stuff that they're seeing with technology and all the musicians that they like, and that's how the virus spreads. And that's how, when a parent raises their kid the right way at home, and then the kid turns 18 or 20 and the kid is a complete train wreck, and they go, where did we go wrong? Well, that's where you went wrong, getting your kids in the indoctrination institution. So when Trump endorsed the Bibles to go into schools, of course, everybody who's Christian applauded. They said, that's wonderful and that's great. But they didn't realize what the real agenda was here. The real agenda is, of course, so that Satanists can then get their indoctrination stuff into schools. Of course, making Satanism look cool, making Christianity look like it's being forced down everyone's throat. But it's ultimately to remove it. Because remember, there is no religion in global communism. So they're going to cancel each other out, just like we saw with free speech. And I just covered how the Satanists, again, like last year, you remember last year in Iowa, the Baphomet statue went inside of the state capitol building in Iowa. And of course, a patriot, a guy who was portrayed as a patriot, went in and smashed it. Then, of course, had to face criminal prosecution for a hate crime over it. Everyone in the alt-right media was saying he was here. It's all staged, okay? It's all staged. It's all done by design. Same exact story this year, right? You think that people would have learned from the story. Kind of like I talked about with all the stories about police officers. What do we hear? Police officers are targeting black people, right? So if you were a cop and you were white and you really wanted to keep your job and you heard all this stuff, wouldn't you go out of your way if you pulled over a black person not to get close to him, not to do this, to say, hey, there's a lot of tension right now. People are filming these things. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to go to jail. And what did we hear? Well, we just heard the opposite. We heard more and more stories about how apparently there was zero self-awareness with these white police officers, and they continued to go after black people every time they pulled them over, right? Well, so you would think after the story in Iowa last year that Christians would hear that and they'd say, well, I'm not going to go there and destroy their stupid little Phoenix Rising or their stupid Baphomet because I don't need to face criminal charges. I don't need to get put in jail, right? Well, think again. Because this year, like I covered the Baphomet in New Hampshire, they put it outside the state capitol building. It was destroyed and rebuilt. And now the Satanic Holiday display in Minnesota that I showed you on my other channel has been destroyed too. Pretty amazing that it's inside of a state capitol building and somehow someone was able to destroy it right inside the building, right? I mean, it tells you how deliberate this stuff is. Like the person didn't say, hey, it's in a state capitol building. This could be like a federal offense if I go in there and destroy property inside of a state capitol building. Oh, the person was such a patriot that they didn't care that they'll go to jail for a couple years because they went in, they kicked this piñata of a Phoenix Rising. It's all staged. They're staging this entire thing to get you on board with exactly what they want. They're making Christians look like bigots, like hateful people. This actually makes people drawn in more to becoming a Satanist or learning about what the Satanists do than it would make them look, want to become a Christian when they see them destroying their property. And then, of course, them saying, well, we could have religious freedom, but they can't have religious freedom. And look, the reality is that if people understood what Satanists actually practiced, there wouldn't be a debate about a religious freedom for Satanists. They'd be arrested and put in jail, right? Because what they practice has to do with human sacrifice. The majority of people don't know that. The majority of people think that it's some fun group that likes to watch Harry Potter movies. They don't really practice magic, even though everything that they teach has to do with black magic and alchemy. No, they just tell you that they care about human rights and equal rights, etc. So again, this is being staged out in front of us. And we have Democrats versus Republicans, right? We have the Republicans saying, that's great that they destroyed it. It shouldn't be in the Capitol in the first place, right? Which Satanism as a religion shouldn't be allowed to exist, is my point. Witches shouldn't be, this notion of these religions that practice things that put other people in danger shouldn't be allowed to exist. Magic should not be allowed to be practiced, but the majority of people think it's all make-believe. They think that all these crimes that happen where they hear about, oh, they practice Satanism, and they kind of poo-poo it like it's not a big deal. Oh, they had a Baphomet thing, and then there was a huge circle on the floor, and there was skull and bones found in their apartment. And then they just pretend like, well, there's no correlation between it. The person was just crazy. Instead of saying, wait, the correlation is that those religions teach human sacrifice. That's why there's a circle drawn on the floor and a pentagram inside, and that's why there's bones and cannibalism being performed. But they tell you that the person's just out of their mind, because if the casual person realized that Satanism was real and witchcraft was real, it would lead more people towards Christianity, because they'd realize that atheism and all this other stuff they've jammed down everyone's throats is fake, right? And they would turn towards God, and we wouldn't have a debate about the existence of a religion called Satanism in our society. So, back to the topic at hand. We know about after-school Satan. I've covered it for years, right? I talked about it in 2016 when after-school Satan got introduced. People were telling me, they're like, that's not really going to happen. It's just a publicity stunt. I said it would happen. I told everyone the purpose is to remove Christianity, after-school Christianity programs from any school that actually has it, which was very minimal, because it gave them the right to go there and say, look, I'm putting my foot in the sand here. Either if you're going to have an after-school Christian program, you have an after-school Satan program. Of course, they know if they say yes, you're allowed to have it, then more kids are likely going to go to the after-school Satan program because it's going to be presented as cool. Oh, you can go there and you can play magic cards, you can watch movies versus going and reading the Bible. Well, of course, and it'll draw more people in, which is exactly what they want to do. But it's really about canceling each other out and removing it. So the after-school Satan program was one thing. Now, back to the headline of this article. Hail Satan, religious freedom fighters, because Satanists are now apparently religious freedom fighters, even though they don't believe in the devil, so I don't understand how it's a religion. But of course I really do understand because they're liars. And they're planning to open a school. A school is the next step, Lucy and Graves said, given that in a number of states, parents can now ask the government to give them a voucher of public money to spend in a religious establishment. So the Satanist next move is to open up a school. Now, I don't even see why they would see the point in that, being that the majority of things taught in a public school anyway, might as well call the public school the Satanic Temple School. because it's nothing but lies, history of lies. They get everybody aligned with the enemy. They think the enemy over in Bagelville's their friend, and they've been victimized their whole lives. They think that some of these other things that they teach in school are important. Don't forget in chemistry class, learning alchemy at a young age, right? Because remember, the core of a lot of witchcraft, I mean, you could just go look yourself. Alchemy and witchcraft, alchemy and Satanism, they run hand in hand, right? Learning all those chemical compounds, etc., right? So this is the next step. This is where we're at in America. Satan is saying that they're going to open up their own schools if Christians are going to have Bibles in their schools, and they're not going to let us present whatever doctrine they want to present, right? Would it be the Anton LaVey Bible, Satanic Bible? Probably. Would it be Aleister Crowley's? I mean, if they're feeling really ballsy, maybe. But, if they actually admit to worshiping the devil and following Aleister Crowley's teachings, then people would start saying, wait a minute, in this guy's book, it talks about young boys with blue eyes and how human sacrifice is better than animal sacrifice. Well, then people would realize people actually commit murder. And then you go, well, where are all those missing kids that somehow go missing that no one ever finds? Like in a world where if you want to go missing, kind of like that guy, we heard that story about that father. Did you hear that story? This guy faked his own death because he wanted to get away from his family and start a new life, right? He moved all the way to Timbuktu, some other country that no one's ever heard of, right? Well, guess what happened? He wasn't even allowed to fake his own death. Not that I condone that, but I mean, if a guy's going to leave his wife and kids and fake his own death, I don't know why the family would even want him back in the first place, because that's an extreme measure. But the story was that the guy fled, and guess what? They went and found him and forced him to come home to his family. So if that doesn't tell you that you can't escape, I don't know what possibly does. But somehow, all of these kids somehow mysteriously go missing when there's a camera on every street corner, or most of these kids, teenagers, have phones anyway, where they could track them. Well, they go missing to not be found, of course, because they're part of this huge satanic ring that we're living inside of, this huge underground network of Satanists who take these children and use them for sacrifice. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Satanists are now proudly letting everyone out there know that their next step is going to be to open up schools. You can't make it up, really. I mean, I don't know what's funnier. And I say funny sarcastically, because it's not really funny. But, I don't know what's more ridiculous. That, or just how we're going to continue to hear these stories about the satanic displays getting destroyed, right? Because think about what that does in the mind of the people out there who hear it, who aren't on one side or the other. Well, it victimizes the Satanists, right? And just like I mentioned, those people over in Bagelville, when you're victimized over and over and over again, kind of like what we saw with Donald Trump, it makes them garner support, right? So what we saw with Trump was the media constantly, the government's trying to sue him for ridiculous crimes. He's going to jail. Everybody started siding more and more with him. They tried to kill him. Oh my gosh, we love Donald. That's how it works, right? He's a victim. They're going after him. Makes you like him even more, right? These victims over in the middle, that pack of land over there that the Rothschilds took. They're victims. You can't question them. You can't say anything about them. They've been victims their whole lives. I support them automatically because they're victims, right? Well, now who's becoming the victim in our, the Satanists are the victim. And who's the big bad bully? Some Christian is just running into these places, destroying Pinata, Phoenix Risings. Remember the story too, a couple years ago that I covered? Maybe a year ago, maybe even a little bit, maybe less, I'm not sure. But there was a story too about how Christians were calling it bomb scares into schools that were allowing the after-school Satan program. Christians were calling them bomb scares, putting bombs outside of the Satanic Temple up in Boston. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, it's unbelievable, right? There's so many stories that, that put them out in the open as victims, and that Christians are crazy, they're lunatics, they're willing to kill, that's not very godly, that whole theme. It's all done by design. It's done by design. It makes people side with the Satanists, hate the Christian even more. Now we're seeing Christians are forcing the Bible into schools, which is turning people off, of course. I mean, it's like the Jehovah Witness type of mindset, like where we see them mocking Christians, knocking on people's doors, saying, have you heard the good news? I'm all about spreading the word, right? But they deliberately make this stuff look forceful, where they're trying to cram it down your throat, which makes people what? Not want to learn about God, to not want to pick up the Bible and learn God's word, right? Which is why I try to do a different method here, show you the wickedness to make you say, wow, there's a lot of evil going on, right? And say, look, this is all biblical, right? The Bible prophesizes this stuff that's happening now. God teaches us these things. He tells us about all the stuff that's happened in the world, the creation of the world to now, to the end of the world. And people go, wow, maybe I'll pick up the Bible, right? That's the method that I take instead of saying, how, walking the streets and shoving a Bible down someone's face when they're out trying to buy something at Nordstrom's or wherever they might be shopping at the grocery store. Different approach, right? But the more they portray Christians as forceful and Satanists as victims, the more the young youth out there, the youth, are going to turn to Satanism. And if the option is in the school to go to the after-school Satan program versus the after-school Bible study, where I'm sure they have some government plant who's wearing a sweater with a comb over and glasses who looks like a total dork, and then the Satanists have leather jackets and, they got, light display. Come down here. Where do you think they're going to go? And they're going to say, look, they're trying to cancel us out. We're good people. We're discriminated against. They're attacking us, right? And people are going to go, I'm going with them. You guys, first of all, you seem boring. Second of all, you seem so formulated. Third of all, why are you picking on everybody, right? That's the deliberate portrayal of Christianity in today's world. I talk about the evangelical movement quite often. CIA creation, the evangelical movement. Every church looks the same. Every church sounds the same. The 501c3, right? Done by design. To push people away from Christianity, not to lure them in. Some of this stuff we see now, right? How it's evolved from the 80s evangelical movement to now. What do you see every church now? Everybody's singing and dancing. Everybody's doing a concert, right? I mean, it's cringy for me, at least. I see it. It's like Hillsong. How do you not cringe? I mean, come on, right? The Bible's about God's word. You don't need to put flashy lights on, and that's what they've turned it into. Oh, it's a concert, right? People are going there to sing. They want to get on stage and sing because they didn't make it on American Idol. I mean, it's unbelievable. God's word is God's word. That's what people need to learn and realize. And you can't force someone to pick up the Bible. People are going to pick it up on their own and actually read it if they feel led to. So my point being with this is the Satanists talking about starting a school shouldn't surprise anybody. This is where we're headed, okay? These stories about the Satanist displays getting destroyed, who do you think's destroying it? Some government operative, okay? Some connection to the military every time. They don't go to jail, but the message is clear because people see it. They're like, why are these Christians continually destroying? They're not doing anything wrong. Well, they are actually doing something wrong if people actually understood what Satanists do, but the Satanists present themselves as loving and caring about women's rights and gay rights, right? It's all part of the deception here. You never hear the alt-right media or Fox News talk about human sacrifice, do you? They just go, oh, these Satanists are weird, Oh, they go to these conventions, they dress up as a goat, right? How about we talk about the origins of it and what they really practice? And we think about the missing kids and everything else and why the government themselves created what we call the satanic panic so that you would automatically dismiss abduction and missing children going back to the 70s and 80s. And now, of course, well, you couldn't go missing if you wanted to, yet somehow these kids still end up going missing. So, ladies and gentlemen, your newest freedom fighters, the Satanists, they're fighting for your freedom by opening up their own satanic school potentially in the future. Welcome to Hell on Earth in 2024, heading into 2025. I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're all well. God bless you and your families as always.